Here.
Thank you. 後編、丸山さんいる、
Yeah.
ゆり、かみろさん、いるかな。
います。
いますね。ありがとうございます。ゆりかわださんいる。ゆうとひらたさんいる。OK、全員いますね。OK, thank you. So before further ado, let's call upon Prime Minister to deliver the speech within 7 minutes. Here.
Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you very much. If you have any POI, please put in the chat, please. So I'll take maybe after 5 minutes or so. Gender pronouns is she, her. Okay, starting in 3, 2, 1. 3 things in my speech. Firstly, I'll explain who is the most vulnerable persons who are likely to be excluded from the feminist movement in this motion. And secondly, I'll talk about what is the outcome of this narrative. For example, the people who don't pursue the romantic relationship are going to be told that you are maybe you're out of the narrative and you can you should go into opt into the romantic relationship that is really harmful to the kind of woman. And lastly, talk about even if that narrative is not dominance, that motion, that narrative is really useful to men to decrease their burdens at the end of the day. So firstly, I'll talk about who is the most narrative vulnerable actors who are likely to be excluded from the feminist movement. I think there are 2 kinds of the people. So first is that women don't pursue the romantic relationship, and secondly is second kinds of the people. The woman is that the women who work who are in the conservative area. I think in terms of the first people that don't pursue the romantic relationship are likely to be excluded from the feminist movements. There are several reasons. The first reason is the successful women's allocated times on pursuing their job. For example, they work for hours and hours, long hours, and for their boss to be evaluated really well. In that situation, or more in order to get promoted, even if they have gone on a day, they can help thinking about a work so they can enjoy the day again. I think these kind of things likely to happen to women who don't pursue the romantic relationship, rather they pursue that really successful career. And second, I think these kind of people are likely to be excluded from feminist movements because while on their side of the house, they say, oh, you should enjoy the romantic relationship. Also, you should pursue a successful career. In that situations, that people feel like, oh, I'm out of this narrative and I can access to the feminist movements on their side of the house. And second people, as I said before, is that people who are in the conservative area. I think why they are likely to be excluded from the feminist movement is that simply they don't work, because in conservative area, but then a lot of people say, oh, you don't need to work hard, or maybe you should go to only you should do the household work. In that situations, they say while on their side of the house, these kind of people are told, oh, it's your failure, or you should work but you can't work. But at least they feel like they being told by or being seen as that the persons on their side of the house. What is the outcome of this? So firstly, I think in terms of the romantic relationship, in terms of the people who don't pursue the romantic relationship, it's to feel like, oh, I'm out of that narrative, or I'm out of the ordinary piece. I'm not an ordinary person's like this. Moreover, they can access to the feminist movement more importantly, because while on their side of the house, they say, oh, that you can pursue the romantic relationship, or in that situations, oh, you should have it all. And then moreover, I think these kind of narrative likely to harm those kind of people while on their side of the house. While on our side of the house, the feminist movement have a lot of diversity. They say, oh, you can do whatever you like. And moreover, both actors can access to the feminist movements. even if they don't pursue a romantic relationship, if you have that some things that is you are worried about, they can like consult with, they can find someone to consult with. For example, they can access to the feminist movements, and they can like find good people to you, and they can consult with your feelings, more confess your feelings, and that will like decrease your like worrying feelings on our side of the house. In terms of the second order actors who are in conservative area as well, they said maybe like they they don't work, if you like can't work, they can access to the feminist movements. For example, if you have something sexual harassment in home, like they can access to the feminist movements to seek for help while on their side of on our side of the house. While on their side of the house, maybe that people feel like, oh, I'm not a really suitable person to pursue for help for feminist movements. And in that situations, they feel like I can go to feminist movements even if I have sexual harassment in the home because I can't work right now. These kind of like situation is likely to happen on their side of the house. It's really like vicious cycle, and moreover, that is really harmful to the harmful to the woman mentally. Lastly, I'll talk about why even if that dominant is not the narrative is not dominance, it's really useful to men, because in their side of the house, maybe the men allocate burden to women excessively, because at least they say, oh, habitual like narrative is there, and in that situations they will think about, oh, maybe you should like work if to the women who are in home. Comparatively, if you the man will say, oh, you should like go into maybe like the workplace. Oh, you don't need to work more harder because like you should opt into the romantic relationship. Moreover, that is a really like just sexual harassment to the women who pursue successful career. In that situations, I think that the dominant, like even if the narrative is not dominance, maybe like the man is like, at least they say, at least you should do work before you should complete your like duty before you work hard. Maybe like you should you should complete your like the role before you opt into the romantic relationship. I think these kind of like burden likely to happen to women by the men by using this like narrative usefully. For all of these reasons, I think in terms of the first kind of the people who don't pursue the romantic relationships, it's likely to be like harmed. It's likely to be harmed by the sexual like comments in the workplace. Moreover, in terms of the people who are in conservative area as well, maybe like they will like think about, even if they can work really successfully, but they are told by, oh, you should work, and that is your failure. These kind of like harm likely to happen on their side. Very happy to propose.
I thank Prime Minister for the remark. Let's call upon Leader of Opposition, Hikia.
すみません。ちょっと、勘違いだったらいけないんで確認したいんですけど、ポイってマンダトリーでしたっけ、今日。
念のため確認したいですね。どこから
しいです。すみません。
申し訳なかったです。ごめんなさい。
いえ、全然大丈夫です。
そうです。ファースト木浦です。セカンドがマサオさんです。ポイは、ミュート解除して、ボイスを出してください。カメラはオフのままでも大丈夫です。I'm going to do two things. First, to explain what's the world with the norm of habit or feminism, because today's opening comment only explain the normative change. I'm going to explain what kind of normative change will likely to lead to a practical consequence for women. Secondly, to explain why habit or feminism is beneficial for women as an individual women. Lastly, I'm going to explain collective benefit. Firstly, what's the world with the norm of habit or feminism? We support the world with the habit or feminism, where prevalent images of women who pursue pursue both career and family is likely. We think in the world with this habit of feminism, women who pursue both career and family share the story of women who subscribe habit of feminism. We think these women are going to tell the story of why pursuing career and family is good for women. We think these women can be economically stable for these people can gain their own money. We think these women can pursue a career also form a family. We think these sort of prevalent images of women who pursue both career and family are going to be prevalent in the world with habit of feminism. We think society will understand these women who pursue the habit of feminism as good. We think the social changes are going to happen in this following way. For example, corporation advertisement for human resources. Whenever corporation want to hire some women, we think this corporation can appeal that you will be able to form a family even in our corporation, for example. We think this corporation will share the story of women who pursue family, even if these people pursue careers. We think this corporation are going to use these women as a role model for human resources. Also, state social welfares for family are going to be changing because states are the representative of citizens, and given that citizens are going to think that this habit of feminism are good enough, we think these states are going to give a better welfare system for women who pursue careers and families. We're talking about parental leave for male and mandatory parental leave for male and women. We think even if women can even if in the situation where women pursue careers, we think these male are going to take a parental leave. We think state social welfare for family are going to be increasing and increasing. We think laws that determine expected actions of corporation also changes. For example, we think that if the corporation do not give a child parental leave or has to work in shorter time for full-time employment, we think these sort of people, these sort of corporations are going to be punished by Rodo Vision Conduction, for example. Given this illustration, why habit or feminism is beneficial for women? I'm going to explain the individual women's benefit. I'm going to explain two benefits. Firstly, financial independence, and second is cultivation of relationship in corporation. First, financial incentive. We think in objection benches, these women cannot gain, in the world without the habit of feminism, women cannot earn enough money for sustaining her life. We think in objection benches, even the best case scenario of objection benches, we think these women cannot work in part-time job, for example. We think these women cannot gain more than 100,000 yen in a year. We think these women cannot gain enough autonomy for sustaining her life. Outside of the house, we think these sort of women are encouraged to work in full-time by pursuing careers while forming a family. We think these women are likely to get stable income by full-time employees. We think this is important because women will get autonomy by using money they earn. We think these women can use the money they earn by themselves freely without intervention of the husband, for example. We think this is extremely important for the worst case scenario in marriage life, for example, DV or divorce. We think in circumstances where some women cannot be satisfied with the lives of his husband, we think these women can choose to divorce, or in the circumstances of domestic violence. Within objection benches, the vast majority of people cannot choose to divorce is because these women cannot have a financial stability. We think these women feel dependence on husband income. We think if these women lose a husband, we think these women cannot sustain her life by themselves. We think this is important in the worst case scenario. Even if it is not a worst case scenario, we think women are going to feel inferiority or feeling of inferiority or dependence on the husband. We think this sort of inferiority or dependence is significantly harmful for women, because whenever female choose to do, we think these women believe that my action is based on the money my husband earns. In the circumstances, women's autonomy is drastically decreasing on objection bench and the cultivation of relationship. In the best case scenario of objection bench, these women can be involved in only the familial relationship. We think these sort of women who do not subscribe the norm of habit of feminism, these women cannot have cannot have only community of family. Within these people cannot only communicate with husband or families within this sort of closest community in opposition benches. Contrast to this, in government benches where habit for feminism is prevalent, within this women can find community in cooperation outside the family. I think this sort of thing is extremely important for women because we're talking about a situation where women can pursue both career and families. We think given that these women are the amateur for raising children, that there are a lot of women who pursue career and family. Whenever you feel that you feel difficulty in raising up children, the consultant will be your colleague or subordinate. We think these sort of women can find community outside the family. We think this is extremely important, not only for reflecting her lives and reflecting the communication between husband with husband, but also the consultant with any difficulty in raising up children or pursuing careers. We think these benefits are going to be connecting the collective benefit of the women. If the large number of women who pursue habit or who subscribe habit of feminism, society believes that it is important to give enough welfare for women, for example, stable income. The reasons why corporations do not hire women, hesitate to hire women, is because women choose to leave soon. We think these sort of normative change are likely for collective benefit for women. Opening government merit is about it is difficult to pursue only careers, but I don't understand how many people are pursuing these careers. We think as long as some people choose to only form a family, we think these actions are going to be affecting the other people's choices. We think in order to change the women's prejudice, we stand on opening opposition.
Thanks, Leader of Opposition, for the remark. Let's call upon Deputy Prime Minister here.
I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay. POI vocally, please. I'd like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The lacking premise of the opposition side is that the women actually can pursue the both sides, which is actually untrue, as we already analyzed. And they are assuming that we are this motion is taking place in a liberal state, but actually this is not true because feminist movements are actually necessary in a non-liberal state, and actually this is the context of today's debate. So I would like to do 5 things in my speech. Firstly, the contextualization. Secondly, why doing both things are inherently hard. Thirdly, rebuttals. Fourthly, characterization of today's target. And lastly, the characterization of this narrative. So firstly, about the context. So as I explained, this is not fully liberal because anyway, women in liberal states, women will pursue companies' jobs, which means that their benefit is not unique, which means that we have to take this motion will take place in a non-liberal state. And secondly, in these kind of states, doing both things are really, really hard for several reasons. Firstly, housework. It is said that it's worth 20 million income per year, for instance. This is a very hard job in the first place. But secondly, this unfair allocation of housework, right? Because men do not do housework in those non-liberal states particularly, and those kind of hard work will only burden the woman in those kind of situations. But thirdly, there's the stigma in workplaces. If you have absence, often, for example, you will be stigmatized by men, which means that doing both things are inherently hard. They don't explain why it is possible in the first place. So let's move on to opposition's points related to this point. So they said that companies will prepare various systems. Firstly, people will not use the system even if those kind of systems exist, as I already contextualized. But secondly, this is not unique. If feminist movement is so strong as the opposition side claim, probably the feminist movement will be able to successfully push other policies on our side of the house as well. For example, holidays for women when they have a bad health condition, for instance, and which is better actually because their policies will only apply to people who have families. But on our side of the house, all kinds of women who work in the workplaces would be benefited, which means that even if this kind of impact is not unique and rather better on our side of the house. So let's move on to the clarification of the actors. Who are the targets excluded by this motion? Two things the Prime Minister explained. Firstly, women in conservative families who need to do housework, but secondly, women who don't pursue romantic relationship. The impact here is that firstly, inferiority. More people so people will be stigmatized this kind of narrative that it's your failure that you couldn't do both things. Actually, you're doing only that one thing, and which more people would be affected by this kind of stigma compared to the opposition side, because the opposition side stigma basically applies to people only who who cannot but on our side of the house, people who cannot do both things are all affected by this kind of motion. On their side of the house, only the people who do both things will be benefited. So inferiority is much bigger on our side of the house. But secondly, those kind of women will not contact or access to feminist movement, which is very, very harmful because they will not be able to share daily suffers, for example, the sexual violence that they receive in a family or workplaces, and which is harmful because they will not be able to escape. Someone needs to say that you can opt out from the workplace or either family, and that's the moment when you can actually opt out from these kind of situations. This narrative actually prohibits those kind of women from doing these kind of things, and that's why they will not be able to escape, which means that safe space only exists on our side of the house, and this is a very, very big big benefit, because those women who are in conservative families or women who don't pursue romantic relationships, that they are actually more vulnerable because they are contradicting to the societal narratives existing in the current situation. That's why we should protect these people, even if they successfully protect people who can do both things. Then next, I would like to explain what's the problem of this narrative and what's the counterfactual, right? So basically, this narrative justifies the situation in which women do housework. So Op might claim that men will help houseworks. The problem is the definition of doing housework is different. Men will say, I wash dishes, so you do housework too. And this is clearly not fair, right? Basically, the thing is, we have to start with a strong narrative saying that men should do housework. So the narrative of let's do together will stabilize today's unfairness because men thinks that the fair situation is the current status quo. That's why we have to start with the stronger narrative. On our side of the house, because the narratives are more diversified, this kind of let's do together narrative will not exist, but rather the more stronger narrative saying that men should do housework, which basically make men recognizes how much houseworks they have skipped, they have ignored, and they will be able to realize, and liberal men will change their actions, but the conservative men actually realize the situation, and women will be able to realize that they were actually in the unfair situation. The let's do together narrative doesn't help those kind of people. So this kind of narrative is likely to be dominant on their side of the house because this is useful for both liberal men and conservative men. Liberal men can demonstrate the promotion of women's social status by using this narrative. Conservative men can justify women doing housework, which means that men will use this kind of narrative. But secondly, feminist leaders tend to support this kind of narrative. They want to show their competence, creating brand images of being perfect. That's why this narrative will be stronger on their side of the house. That's why opposition cannot claim, for example, by saying that this is actually one of the feminist narratives, so it's not problem of existing those kind of things. They cannot claim these kind of things because this narrative will be dominant and will erase other kinds of feminist narratives. On our side of the house, the existence of diverse narratives will be ensured because there's no perfect narratives that satisfies men or feminist leaders. That's why accessibility to various narratives will actually exist. That's why conservative women will be able to access narrative saying that, yeah, doing housework is great, you are very strong. Or women who are working will be able to access feminist narratives saying that working women are very, very strong. That's why those kind of accessibility will be ensured on our side of the house. But lastly, by using 30 seconds of my last argument, I would like to introduce another actor harmed by this motion. Basically, people who try to do both things but fail to do them. And this is big in number because, as I mentioned, how difficult it is to do both things. Basically, firstly, they lack information. They lack information beforehand because of the success stories. But secondly, they will have a strong stigma of opting out from either of their activities, which means that they will not be able to opt out even if they have very strong like mental and physical harm, which is very, very harmful because they will not be able to consult with other people. They will continue to suffer from these things. That's why it's bad for all three actors, which are all vulnerable. Proud to propose.
Thank Deputy Prime Minister for the remark. Let's call upon Deputy Leader of Opposition, here.
聞こえますか？
はい、聞こえます。
はい、ありがとうございます。ポイはチャットで気づくので、チャットでチームメイトっていうか、OGCG と一緒にお願いします。もし6分の時にポイ気づいてなかったら、ディベーターでもチェアでもちゃんとポイ取ってくださいって口頭で介入してください。はい、じゃあ始めます。Three issues. Firstly, with three simple rebuttals, I will debunk OG's case. Two, macro impact and comparison. Even if some individuals feel suffering, why, from the perspective of entire feminism, we have to promote habitual feminism. Lastly, actually, it is good for individual women as well. Already, my partner gave enough analysis, which was completely neglected by OG, so I'm going to just highlight them. Firstly, OG's case. There are three problems. Firstly, if DPM cogitates think that in liberal context, women are already working and already passing family and career both, then all habitual feminism is not necessary. It means they are failing to support this motion. Look at this motion. This motion says habitual feminism has done more harm than good. It's retrospective perspective. It means if they think that liberal context is already progressed, that's thanks to habitual feminisms that promote that it is possible for women to pursue both career and family, then liberal context used to be conservative context several decades ago, but thanks to habitual feminisms, it became progressed, which means if they think liberal context is not problematic, that's benefit of habitual feminisms. Then conservative context is also going to progress in the next several decades, then they negate this motion already. Second, OG's case, in short, is that some women cannot feel affiliated. Some women feel that the feminist movement is not reliable. It is unlikely, and it is unlikely that those suffering women from, for example, harassment actually will not ask help to feminist movement. Because feminist movement have diverse and different leaders and organizations. It's true that they exist for organizations and leaders supporting, claiming for habitual feminisms, but the feminisms caring and dealing with sexual harassment or like the domestic violence have different branches, different organizations, different leaders. If they don't like habitual feminisms, they can ask for help for different feminism organizations and leaderships. Then OG's case does not stand here. Lastly, even if all of the OG's case is true, it is not exclusive at all. Because in government paradigm, they say women can pursue only one of two out of career or family. Then for women who want to pursue both career and family, they think that feminist movement is not reliable. Then they will not ask for the help. Then nothing is changed. Then same harm exists in both paradigms. Then debate cannot happen in those arguments. Then OG's case does not stand here. Second argument in my speech about macro impact. So my partner already gave several reasons as to how more women are able to pursue career under Australian House. I'm going to check those analyses, which was completely neglected. Firstly, currently, in the government paradigm, more women are likely to be forced to give up career if they become pregnant, if they are to have families. Because they have to be physically pregnant, they have to be physically hospitalized to give birth. It's easier for their male partners to force them, with female partner, to stay at house, stay at hospital, to continue to care their babies and to continue to housework. Here, their simple claim that male should do housework narrative does not stand. not only they didn't give any logic to prove that narrative is likely to be function, but moreover, functionally and structurally, women are likely to be forced, unfortunately, to stay at house. Then their narrative does not stand, and unfortunately, women are likely to be forced to give up career in the government paradigm. Comparatively, there are two specific reasonings why in our side of the house, more women are able to pursue career. Firstly, thanks to role model, thanks to habitual feminism, women are more motivated to pursue both, more motivated not to give up both. Thanks to the narratives prevailing that both, there are some, even if some, at least there are some successful women who pursue both successful career and families, like their interview blogs are posted on job hunting like homepages of each corporations. Then many like students, many like workers feel it's possible to pursue both. But secondly, more women became actually able to pursue both career and family. Like they said, like the information is lacked. That information is provided exclusively from role models, exclusively from media who prevail information for pursuing both career and families. Then more women can become able to pursue both. Then what is macro impact out of that? So outside the house, more women pursuing both career and family becomes more the leads that women's working condition become much better. As Daddy has already, as my partner has proven to you, that more women continue to work instead of giving up career means that corporations are not able or actually feel reluctant to decrease salary for women because then they cannot get good workers. Rather, they are forced to have same standard of salary to male and female. And also, governments are likely to provide more subsidy or more care for the parental leave, for example, then they are more able to, their working condition become better. And this impact of better working condition is for all women. Then we give benefits to the all women. OG, POI, please.
Okay, I think like you said, oh, the women are able to pursue their like the goal. But I think like the successful story likely to harm the women who cannot do this. Why you can say that people are more motivated and able to do this?
I said more women become actually able to pursue both. So comparison. Even if some individuals cannot actually feel happy for habitual feminisms, our trade-off is here. In government paradigm as well, some people actually have to be environmentally forced to pursue both career and families, such as single mother, such as women whose partner is sick or injured. Well, then it's better that entire women's working condition become greater, or at least it's better that they feel they are able to pursue both career and family than outside Israel. For individual women, so I'm going to just check what my partner has already given to you. So financial independence is extremely important for psychological security as well as physical independence in terms of domestic violence, etc. And also they are able to get community to rely on in terms of workplaces. And actually, they are able to pursue both career and family, which happened in the very context as Deputy Prime Minister clearly conceded. That's why habitual feminism is beneficial. Thank you.
I thank DPM for the remark, DLO for the remark. Let's go from MG here.
am I audible?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. じゃあ行きます。Okay, thank you. everybody. DLO Masao did a great job of talking about problem of OG. Their context is narrowed and also their exclusivity of harm is lacked. And I think relevance is a little bit far from the reality of this motion. The CG's extension will be simple. Because of our explanation about this habit-all feminism, which is very unique to this motion, not only possible, but it is also desirable for women to pursue balancing career and family. Those kind of intimidating narrative is going to be very dominant that will pressurize women who are vulnerable and jeopardizes their value. That mechanism will be more exclusive and more impactful. Therefore, CG will take this debate. Two arguments. Firstly, how habit-all feminism actually looks like. I will explain the very premise of the opening argument. Secondly, I will explain how opposition benefit is symmetric, rather on our paradigm, without nuance of desirable. Still, it is possible to prepare environment for the individuals to be successful as the way they are, and that is more inclusive, better way to achieve the goal of each woman. Therefore, we will take this debate. First of all, habit-all feminism, how it looks like. We say that will be intimidating messages which pressurize or oppress vulnerable individuals. I have three structural explanations, not now. First of all, like this narrative is full of survivorship biases because women who can think that, oh, we can do both family and career, we should do. It's both family and career, or it's desirable for women to achieve both kind of things. People who can think this kind of perspective is already privileged individual, right? Because maybe they think there might be some structural difficulty, but they can overcome, or also what they have a more good career, university name or something like that. Those people environmentally can think very positively, optimistically. Therefore, those people are privileged. For example, the white women or like women who have talented, or those kind of individuals are very likely. Those people have survival biases. Though I have some struggle, but I have studied a lot, therefore I could overcome. Those kind of survivorship exist. But actually, there are much more individuals who cannot achieve this kind of overcoming structural difficulty. That's why this narrative is going to be very full of survival biases. Second characteristic is about this is enhanced by echo chamber. Because in the first place, the feminists are very energetic individuals, right? Who are afford to use your energy to a movement. Also, you have room to financially or energetically do activity or something like that. Those people are more likely to have privileged individuals. Those people are more likely to be optimistic. Those people will think that, oh, that people saying we can do both, then maybe people around them is also privileged individual, right? And these people say that, oh, it is actually desirable to those kind of both kind of career and the family, then we can do balancing. It is really best situation. Those kind of echo chamber effect existing for the feminist movement who are saying have it all. In that kind of situation, that idea of like, have it all will be enhanced and trained very strongly in the feminist movement. Thirdly, this is important for the exclusivity. We say voice on the influence of this habit-all feminism will be very larger because those individuals who have this habit-all feminism are likely to be materially well-rich individuals who can work, therefore financial benefit, for the money they have more, therefore they can use this money for the more like financial like advertisement of their own messages or recruiting some individuals, something like that. And also they have strong energy and optimistic energy, therefore maybe they are very good at presenting themselves in the SNS, something like that. And also because they are very leadership, they have good people personality, therefore the human connections with the other people is very stronger. In that kind of situation, that the voices of the have it all is going to be very strong among social media, because if they post that kind of some glorification of like some role model of have it all, maybe there are many retweets, there are many favor, there are many reply to like compliment those kind of individuals. Those kind of things is very likely. OG asserted, oh, this is exclusive and dominant. That's assertive, right? We have already told you three structural reasons how this voice will be bigger, how this will be going to be dominant, which might pressurize the other feminism to be less and less. In that kind of situation, because of explanation from CG, we told you exclusive, strong messages will be done by this kind of habit feminism. Given this, why this is impactful? Because this will jeopardize the vulnerable women's. This will oppress vulnerable women. First of all, like there are structural difficulty for the women, like racial minority or like people who are poor. Those individuals cannot overcome the situations as glorified of the like habitual feminism. The white women pressurized some sexual harassment, but African American women are more pressurized by the environmental things they cannot overcome. They think inferior, especially when there are strong glorification, dominant glorification because of this habit feminism. Though that women can overcome, but I cannot do. This kind of gap of inferiority is very strong. Therefore, this will oppress those kind of individuals. Secondly, more generally, different from OG, like individuals who are not talented enough, right? There are many people like me who are not talented as debater or as like consultant people. There are many people who are not talented, even though you are not a minority. Those people think that, oh, that white women are successful, but I am white, but I cannot be successful. Those people exist because of less energy or like a less like ability to study or something like that. Those people also feel oppressed. In this situation, weighing two reasons why our side is better. First of all, number of people, not only OG. OG はなんか本当にそう。conservative, right? But CG is more, even if it's liberal, even if it's just a white individual, that harm we have said is happen, more number of people, secondly, more vulnerable individuals, right? Structural difficulty and more strong glorification, therefore more strong inferiority, therefore this part is more than OG. Then, refutation. Secondly, benefit of opposition is symmetric. Two things to say. First of all, Oppo tried to say this is important, but they didn't necessarily prove why nuance of desirable is necessary, right? They didn't tell us on our side anyway, maybe choice feminism will prosper because people see that the choices of individuals is very important. Therefore, without the nuance of demanding like desirable, people try to prepare choices for individuals as the opposition says. In this situation, maybe like parental leave or like a paid leave or such kind of things is possible. In that kind of situation, women who want to work both it can do those kind of things in also in the CG's paradigm. Secondly, they said motivation is very important DLO, but in terms of motivation, if environment is prepared, people who are capable get motivations because people who are capable to do both things are already successful people in the first place, right? They have a good career, maybe they have good successful experience with studying, with having a romantic relationship. Therefore, if environment is prepared, like Ikuji Kyuka is prepared, something like that, they can think, oh, I can do well. Like without strong nuance from the like habit old feminism, they can individually think, oh, I can do it. They will do it. In this kind of situation, those strong people anyway can achieve their own goal by our narrative. For this reason, CG win this debate. Thank you.
I thank MG for their remark. Let's call upon MR. Take care.
Multiple?
Yes, you are.
Right. あ、POI は、声に出してください。あ、それからカメラつけるとかお願いします。チャットは気づきません。Two things in my speech. First of all, why the lifestyle of men will be also balanced in the counterfactual, i.e., why the feminist movement now is currently just working for something to cause some like conflict between men and women, but this will work for balancing the some burden on men and women. But second material, I would say less people will die, less women will die alone or live alone. Then But before talking about two extensions, first of all, I want to talk about what's the main context of this debate must be. I think that like OG and O are talking about like two like extreme context, but I think the most main context must be the area which exposed the feminist movement to a large extent, because because insofar as this feminist movement have say to the general public that this motion doesn't work in the first place. Then also I will frame out OG with this like framing, because like OG was mainly OG and CZ were mainly talking about some women are left from this feminist movement, therefore they will suffer. But in now feminist movement the feminist movement now existing is twofold. First is something like just like glorifies some like women who really pursuing career, or in some like America like conservative context, they are like glorifying some women having so many children and having like big family. I think in this context, anyways, women have two like extreme like option. Then I think some women are also left in status quo in the first place. Therefore, I don't know why. What's the genuine like genuine like suffer or genuine like difficulty exist for them, and I don't know the difference between this with なんかこのモーションと now. Then talking about extension. First extension. The first extension thesis is simple. This can be a tipping point for men to start doing household chores because they have less burden in doing this in the long term. So first of all, I want to talk about why men are now like sticking to like work, and they will like let like women stay at house. The biggest reason for this is because the biggest reason why conservative lean men stick to work is because they fear the financial instability, because they are the only men for that family to like earn money, and then if they can't work with full energy, they might not be able to promote, and they might not be able to feed family. Therefore, they really fear being not able to promote in the company. Therefore, they will, in order to focus on like job, they will like let other family members to stay at home and do all the household chores. Then, but I think those things in a conservative context, I think those like tendency will likely to be like marginalized to some extent, for the simple reason that like women will also earn like a reasonable amount of money, as I will explain. Then I think and I think it's crystal clear that so many women are also gaining a reasonable amount of money. Therefore, I think this tendency never ends, and I think government cannot refute this point. Then, given that, I think that the biggest difference here, difference here between government and opposition is that like men have the more psychological stability in like in terms of like long-term life plan. Then, why do I think? The next assertion, why do I think men also would change their own attitude? Then they will like do like their own household chores, given that like the men and women's burden are balanced. 4 reasons for this. First of all, because again, they feel less fear in financial stability, and because the women also gain less, earn some like reasonable amount of money. But second reason for this is because men also feel so like hard or difficult to do hustle working, because it's simply difficult for them to like think about a job for 24 hours, and it's so troublesome, and therefore this the norm can be a tipping point for them to like not to like stick into the more promotion, but they can like, you know, they can stop their own like the kind of like feeling to stick to the job, and they will like they will have some chance to like see their own family's condition. But the reason for this is because the men also don't want families discord, right? Because when like women feel like so like insecure in staying at home, then it might be some tipping point to have some like bad fighting among family members and so on. And this is simply not beneficial for men as well, because they might divorce, or they might have like gain more stress, and therefore they might not be able to like focus on working and so on. But fourth reason for this, because stigma against the too masculine nature or attitude do exist in kind of in status quo as well. Because for example, in a liberal context, there's so many people are educated, and so many people are like exposed to some like narrative that like being too masculine and is so bad. And also, for example, and I think the men have also actually to change to leave from some masculine nature. Therefore, for example, like so many men are now starting like making up because for beauty and so on. I think there will be more room for this. Impact is simple. First of all, women are in many contexts now are the okay, closing off here.
Thank you. If the man is so kind as you depicted, also in our problem, man is very supportive, women can self-actualize. What is difference?
No, because men in your context feel fear in losing money. I'll explain. Okay, then women, but let me be so okay. In the most likely scenario, women are like unfairly like forced to do both working and household chores. Then those like things will be balanced. When like having all is glorified, as closing government said, I think it's good for men as well because it's easy for them to opt in, right? Because be comparative in government counterfactual, their existing narrative is only the extreme way of like the feminist movement, right? As I have explained, it's so hard for men to opt into this. Therefore, I think it will be much more room for them to do balanced to have a balanced lifestyle. Lastly, less people will live alone because now in too liberal context, some people like glorifies the passing career too much. Therefore, they will stop like finding like partners and they have to live alone. But this is so troublesome because anyways, if you get to like 30s or 40s, so many other your friends are having family and you feel fear of dying alone and so on. This is so hard because you need to fear until you die. I think less people will have such kind of like lifestyle and more people will like stop like sticking to the promotion. Therefore, anyways, in counterfactual, people's like mind will be balanced. Thank you.
I thank member of the opposition. Let's call upon government with KTL.
All right. I think the closing opposition is obviously out of this debate because their, analysis is completely wrong, assumption. Because I think the only thing that I said is that, on our side, men will feel fear over like losing their, financial, stability. That is why actually, this awful male will force women to stay at home. But I think this is completely symmetrical analysis. I think on either side of the house, awful male, has like, cultivated their conservative ideology through echo chambers or stuff like that, and also massive thoughts of conservative ideology spreading through this media, and also Fox News is, kind of spreading this narrative. In that situation, I don't think that we have much data on this because I think anyways on either side of the house, awful male will still, anyways has incentive to actively, demonize women who are working outside of the house. So I don't think that the, CEO was uniquely able to prove why on their side, these women, these male will be strongly motivated to like, send their women to workplaces. I do not think this is the case. But second of all, I will flip this. I think especially in conservative areas, the feminist movement has historically been demonized in the first place, right? What I mean by this is that if we, promote this ideology, I think the doing both will have some, like feminist ideology. What I mean, this means that obviously if you try to do the both, you're likely to be seen, you're a femi people, for example. In that situation, it is more difficult for female individuals to actively work outside or doing the both. I think this is more likely to be demonized by conservative society. In this manner, I think the financial stability case is untrue. And I think this is overwhelmingly under-mechanized assertion from the closing opposition. Then, I think Shinya-san did two things. It's like do one very important thing in this debate. That is to recharacterize this debate. When the opening government was not actually able to characterize this debate, I think this is extremely important factors in the first place. I think the nuance of Shinya-san is that I think because of things like survivorship biases or enhanced by some echo chambers, for example, the voice and the influence they get longer, for example. I do think that this historically like this narrative has oppressed women who are on the ground, right? This narrative is actually from extremely privileged people. For example, they are randomly born into very, privileged houses. Your father is actually developed, for example. Just because of that, I think these women were able to succeed in the past. But these things is likely to push some desirability. What I mean by this is that, working outside and doing the both is desirable. So other sorts of alternatives is not desirable, right? this is extremely important factor because obviously the opening half is out of this way. They're not mutually exclusive. But when we were able to capture this way by saying that, desirability is delta, I think on either side of the house, doing the both in itself is very possible because firstly, that is their choice. That is why women can, take the both. If you're, if you're like kind of that, wives or like fathers are very kind, it's very possible for women to do both. But second of all, the second important implication is that I think this narrative just happens delta in terms of desirability. On their side of the house, women have to do because this is desirable. This is the nuance of the feminist movement. But on our side, that is not the case. That is possible, but it is not desirable. That is their choice, right? This is more moderate, and women are not likely to be forced to opt into workplaces. I think this is better for especially women who are, most vulnerable backgrounds in the first place. Then, firstly, directly cross, how does this clash with the OG? I think the problem of the OG is that firstly, I think they're, questionably characterized by this way by saying that, women cannot do the both because of things like stigma or only jobs for women that success or stuff like that. But these are under mechanized in the first place because I think that in terms of stigma point, to what extent stigma is attached on individuals, for example, and also I think only job for women or stuff like that case, to what extent is harsh, for example. I think these are most likely to be under mechanized. Then I think, we were uniquely able to introduce how this narrative actually looks like. Thus, I think, their assertion is actually contingent upon their premise. That is why I think our side is obviously logically prior to the opening garment. I think the OG has no way on this. But secondly, in terms of exclusivity, when they were unable to actually characterize why this is the case, I think we say that, on either side, we will weaponize the idea that we can possible, right? Then I don't think that the OG was able to prove why this narrative have unique data on this. I think, the OO is right to assert that the OG has a extremely limited data. This means that I think in terms of, this, we were able to expand this data, and also we were able to explicitly tell you why women are harmed more on our side of the house. This is a very important factor because just because the, women, like you're randomly successfully, succeeded in the past, you can do it. Like this narrative you spreaded. If you're born into the very vulnerable context, you will see that I'm different from you guys. I think massive dehumanization happens towards this. I think this is very devastating situation for especially the most vulnerable people on the ground. Then that is why I think on this we clearly won the OG. Then on the OO, I think that the OO has similar issues to the OG. I think the first thing that I have noted here is that the only mechanism as to why women can do the both is because do the both sneakily on their side is because we can motivate, right? But I think the problem here is that to what extent this assertion has unique data is unclear, right? I think even on our side of the house, if women want to do this, I think it is possible for them because this narrative in itself does exist in the first place. Then I think what the opening position is pointing out is just to send women to unfortunate places in the first place. Because if you actively motivate the most vulnerable people on the ground to work outside of the house, obviously they're likely to be discriminated. They're likely to feel fear or practical consequences that they face in the future. That is why this is obviously a bad thing. That is why I think on our side, we have more rational decision, but on their side, gratification, which lead to some rational decision. That is why their side is obviously bad in the first place. But secondly, I think that even if we charitably consider that motivation is important factor, we can motivate more women to work outside of the house. I think that still on our side of the house, if women have motivation that which is rationally cultivated, it's possible for you guys to do this. That is why I do not think that the opening opposition was able to prove why they're talking about very important context. I think they're obviously out at this instance. But second problem, the opening opposition is that they misunderstand this context. I think DLO pointed out that this is historically retrospectively created. That is why I think if this is like the current status is the middle context. Obviously, this is because of this movement, but this is not the case, right? Because I do not think that this is the only feminist ideology. We have a lot of idea of the feminism. That is why I do not think that this is the case. But secondly, more importantly, even on our side of the house, feminist movement can push the burden towards this societal system, and feminist movement can try to rectify the current status in the first place. I think on their side, they will rather just push this unnecessary burden to the most vulnerable public on their side, but on our side that we can allocate that resource towards the criticism, towards the most, structural reasons why the women are oppressed. That is the most important things in this debate. Yeah, proud to propose.
Thank you for the remark. Let's call upon opposition word.
Can I be heard?
Yes. I can hear.
Thank you. Two things in this speech. Firstly, which side get more volume of feminists, but secondly, how the societal changes happen and why is that good on our side of the house. But before that, 2 points of clarification or housekeeping thing to begin with. The first thing we need to recognize here is that this motion is not an active motion, which means it's not correct or it is not valuable to analyze how this narrative has been benefited for the women to begin with. That is just active motion, right? But motion clearly says that how this narrative have impacted towards the society in general, which means that the benefits exclusively towards the women is not really meaningful to begin with. Given the fact that all the other team haven't explained why this women is the most important actor to begin with. But I think that it is consensus to assume that that the valuable situation for the women is somehow intrinsic good to begin with, for a simple reason that each team have claimed that benefiting women is somehow valuable to begin with. When the government side said this narrative has done harm for the women who wants to pursue their career, is somehow in a direction with that to begin with. And when the opening opposition have told us that the balancing out and having work and life, private life is somehow valuable, that is a moment where the interest of the women should be the main context to begin with. The deadlock that we have from the opening half and even closing government is that the contextualization is somehow not really well done to begin with. I think the opening opposition was too conservative to assume that to the extent that it is to the extent that women cannot start having work or career without having this narrative, or the opening government was somehow also was a little bit too liberal in a sense that the women have already been in a societal position and they have option to choose having private life or pursuing their ultimate career. So what about the first issue about which side get more volume of feminists? What the member of the opposition have told you is that the progressive women dying alone in the current situation without having this narrative, for a simple reason that they have only two options. One is that to pursue career to the full extent, but second is to stay in home and just choose not to have any career, that sort of stuff. What my partner have already told you is that the women in this specific situation or the context is likely to be suffer alone for a simple reason that they have no time or no alternative to pursue their private life to begin with. Why this analysis is really important to begin with? Firstly, because the women on the ground, irrespective of their being feminist or non-feminist, it is true that being alone is somehow intrinsically invaluable, intrinsically bad to begin with. That is a moment where the women have less incentive to join feminism or be like that person to begin with. People avoid to be like that for the simple reason that the dying alone is intrinsically invaluable to begin with. This means that the less numbers of people, less numbers of women participate in the feminism or start to pursue their career, that is a moment where the political capital that these feminist movement have is somehow is going to be decreased on that side of the house. Why having this narrative, like have it all feminism on our side of the house is somehow good, is simply because, like it simply decreases the numbers of people who pursue their career and dying alone to begin with. And that is a moment where the diversified sort of life, diversified sort of career is likely to happen on our side of the house. That is a moment when like people have more incentive to join, like feminist movement. Second argument we told you from our side of the house is that about how the societal changes happen on our side of the house and why is that good. This is note that this is the exclusive analysis from member of the opposition in a sense that the analysis about incentive and opportunity for the male individual. No one talks about it from the opening half and closing government. Three things to note here. Firstly, because the political capital that male have is somehow huge in current society, that means that we have more it is likely that if we get more like support from the male, if we get more like atmosphere from the male, it's somehow uniquely important to have societal changes in destructing the gender role that we have in the current society. For the simple reason that they are like now dominating the politics, or they're now governing the workplace, and they have huge political capital in the society. But second thing we need to recognize here is that about incentive for these male, that these male have more incentive to balance out their own career and like it private life on our side of the house if we have this habit of feminism. This is like inciting the mechanism from the opening opposition that the women choose to balancing out. The male can copy that within their own life. But thirdly, there's massive numbers of people or massive amount of people that is suffering right now from the masculinity that we have in the current society, and that is a moment where male is likely to participate in societal norm to begin with. What's the comparative? I want to talk about comparative from that side of the house, but if there is any point, like I'll happily take that. No? Okay. What's the comparative that the government side of the house needs to defend is that the male needs to work and like earn money like without spending enough time in house, and that in house, or like female like have only two options with no family and pursuing career to the full extent, or like having family and no career to the full extent. This is the worst case scenario that we need to assume if we didn't have habit of feminism, for the simple reason that they can't explain how the societal structure is going to be changed on that side of the house. This was the burden from the government side, but they haven't fulfilled this. We're proud to oppose this motion.
I thank opposition for opposition whip for the remark. This marks the end of the debate. I think we are meant to move to the deliberation room, so please wait here.